Over the past month, I've been working on a proof of concept for my feature film idea, White Owl. Parts of White Owl are going to be an analog, lo-fi, horror type of film. And in this video, I wanted to go over the sound design, how I achieved the visual style. And if you stick around until the end of the video, I'll show you guys some behind the scenes footage of how I captured some of the shots in the film as well. Hey guys, Ryan with Camp Films here. Thank you so much for joining me today. In my last video, I talked about the importance of a proof of concept, what they are, and how they can help you. But in this video, I wanted to focus on specifically what went into making my proof of concept as far as the visual style, the audio, and how I captured some of the shots in the film as well. First, let's talk about the sound design in the film. All of these sound effects featured in this film, of course, were provided by Epidemic Sound. I've been using that service for years for my YouTube content. I started things off with some projector or some video film pops and cracks to get things started, to give it that vintage sound. And I also overlaid a vinyl record sound over the entirety of the piece to really give it that old speaker vibe. I did all of the voice work in this myself, from the therapist at the beginning of the piece.
Okay, Peter, let's see if we can figure out what's been troubling you. Okay, Peter, let's see if we can figure out what's been troubling you.
To the main protagonist, Peter, at the end when he speaks. That's all me. Hopefully I was able to differentiate my voice enough to where you couldn't tell it was the same person. The only speaking part that I didn't do was the heavy breathing at the end. I found a really good sound effect for that, so I used that instead. I even did the sounds of the small child saying Peter in there. I just used pitch correction to pitch my voice up a little bit and tried to speak as softly as I could.
Peter.
I did all the yelling and shouting, but other than that, everything else was sound effects I got off Epidemic Sound. For every sound effect and voiceover part in this piece, I ran it through Adobe Premiere's audio controls and used the From the Radio effect, which gave it a really distorted, distant, and faded sound to really pull off that vintage vibe. And I turned down the clarity a bit on each sound as well. And for some of the sounds, of course, I used reverb to give them that echoey, distant sound, as if Peter were going into a trance and you could hear them from his subconscious. Moving on to the visuals, these first couple of shots here are stock footage from Pexels.com. I use a ton of stock footage from that site. Highly recommend it. It's free, royalty-free images. And as I mentioned in my last video, when you're doing a proof of concept, don't be afraid to use stock footage or stock photography if you need to demonstrate some scenes that you don't have the means to pull off right now. The purpose of this is to get people excited about your project and to give them an idea of what it is you're going for. Kind of like using a mood board or whatever. This is pretty much the same thing. Stock footage works really great also, especially for things like establishing shots of nature that you might not have access to. Like if you wanted your film to take place in New York or whatever and you needed a shot of New York and you couldn't get it yet, maybe you could use some stock footage in that kind of instance. So these first couple of scenes here are stock footage. I made sure to use the faded film and Lumetri in Adobe Premiere to give them that faded film look. Added a blur around the edges. And over the entire piece, I added film grain and some film grunge. Now, I downloaded the film grunge overlay from my Adobe Express account, but you can find free versions of this similar thing all over the internet. You can even download some of them from YouTube. Just make sure to give credit when you need to. You can use something like Film Convert if you want to get a specific looking film stock look to your visuals. I'm not sure if this is true or not. When they were making SKINAMARINK, they actually dialed their ISO up as high as they could, and they placed their hand over the lens of their camera and got about 10 seconds of film grain from their actual camera so that it would match up closely with all of the footage that they shot. And then they overlaid that film grain on top of everything. And that's what I did here in this piece as well. I also made sure to turn down the clarity on all of my shots, and like I said, give it that faded film look to make everything look washed out and retro. My idea for the final film for White Owl is not really to have it all look lo-fi and analog. I want that to be reserved for the flashback scenes or the scenes when Peter is under hypnosis in the film. I'm still working on the script and the overall flow of the story, but in my mind right now, I kind of want it to be two parts. I want the regular parts of the film, the standard parts of the film where Peter is shown and going through his life. I want that to have a kind of House of the Devil vibe, kind of that 80s retro style look, if you're familiar with that film. And then when he goes into remembering things from his past or he's under hypnosis, I want that stuff to have that lo-fi analog SKINAMARINK style. So it's going to kind of be a blend of two different visual styles. Now moving on to some behind the scenes looks at when I shot this thing. I filmed all of these shots at my parents' house, which is just right down the road from me, except for one shot of my son, which we filmed here at our house in his bedroom. And this first shot here, like I said, the first two are stock footage. This first shot here of the door was filmed in one of my parents' spare bedrooms. I just set the camera up here on the floor and I put a light outside of the door, and I just got various shots of moving the light around, shots with, without the light, until I got a collection of shots that I thought were great. This next shot here should be pretty simple. I'm gonna take my camera off the tripod and set it on a pillow here in the floor and just get an angle up of this doorway. And I'm gonna go out into the hallway and move my cheap Amaran light around a little bit and just get a few different looks of the light passing across the floor. And I'm going to push the door open and try to stay out of sight and get some shots that look like someone is opening the door from the outside. And I just opened the door slowly here and there and tried to stay out of sight to, of course, give the effect that something unknown was opening the door, like a poltergeist or whatever. So yeah, that was that first shot. Pretty simple, easy to do. I just set my camera up on a pillow in the floor to give it kind of an angle up a little bit and, just dialed in the focus, and that was pretty much it. For the next shot here in the hallway, I actually used one of my APUTURE lights. Let me see if I can show this thing to you. This little guy is great. I can't remember what this is actually called, but this is a bulb from APUTURE. This works really great for practicals on your sets because you can link it to your app and you can and give it all kinds of different colors with the app and all sorts of lighting effects like lightning, fire simulation, TV glow, police, siren lights, all that kind of good stuff. And you just plug it into a practical lamp on your set. And that's what I did in this shot. I put this in a lamp in an adjacent room there off the side of the hallway, and I added the lightning effect to it. So I set my camera up on a tripod and just had that flashing light off on the side of the room, and I did all the camera movement in post of the camera turning and moving further down the hallway. So I have the camera set up here in the hallway, and I'm going to do all the camera movement in post. I'm going to put this bad boy right here in a practical lamp here out in the side bedroom and put it on a lightning effect. And you guys will see how that turns out here in just a second. Got the effects set up and ready to go. Now it's time to shoot. This would look really great if I could have set up a dolly and actually had the camera moving down the hall, but I thought this worked really great for what I needed. So I remember what that light is actually called. I'll put an Amazon link to it in the description. Highly recommend get one for yourself. It's come in handy for me so many times on so many different projects. This shot here of the light outside of the bedroom window, I just got my APUTURE Lightstorm light, put it on a stand, and I set my camera up inside the bedroom on the inside of the house. I went outside the house, made sure, of course, the window was in focus, and I just moved my Lightstorm light up and down, different angles, different heights outside of the window until I got a look that I really liked where you couldn't see the actual beams of the light or the light itself from the window. And I thought that created a really cool effect of a strange light moving outside of the house. And I really think these sound effects really make this scene really creepy here as well. And this shot here with the door, of course, is one that I filmed earlier when I had the camera set up in the floor of the bedroom. I just used one of my smaller Amaran lights, real cheap light that I have on a stand, and just moved it around in the hallway and got different looks of the light creeping in from underneath the crack in the door until I found a shot that I actually liked, and I used that. And I really love the sound effect here in this scene as well as the light moves. It's not a natural sound that you would think to hear, and it really just gives you an unsettling feeling of something unnatural happening outside of this doorway. These few little quick shots that you'll see here and there of a close-up of the owl's face, that is actually stock footage that I found on Pexels as well. I just zoomed it in really close, blurred it up a little bit, and used that to cut in between some of the scenes here. In this shot here, I actually put just had my camera handheld, and I just focused it up at the ceiling in the hallway and I added that wiggle, that turbulent displace effect in post, and just made it seem like Peter was floating down the hallway out of the house. This other shot here that's interspersed is of the young boy walking down the lit hallway is actually stock footage as well. And I quickly cut that in here with shots of the door opening to kind of build that sense of dread. And this final shot here is of my son. He helped me out with this shot. I just had him sit on his bed here in the house. I had one of those little credit card style lights that APUTURE makes. I keep it in my bag at all times. Highly recommend that light as well. But I just had that shining on him kind of like a flashlight style, and had him slowly turn his head towards the camera. And that was pretty much it for the shot. And action. Perfect. Cut. I would say obviously the toughest part of putting all this together was, of course, the sound effects, agonizing over all the sound and doing the voiceover parts. The filming stuff was easy, especially when you're dealing with lo-fi stuff like this. You really don't have to worry about it looking great. You're just kind of wanting it to look dirty and interesting and appealing to the viewer. And I misspoke. That actually wasn't the final scene. This final little bit here is of a mask I have. I just put it up in front of the camera, blurred it up really good in post, and all the camera movement is done in post. It was just a static shot that I set up of the mask. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That is my proof of concept for White Owl. Working hard on the script and putting together the pitch deck for this thing. Hopefully we can get some people on board and get this thing shot. I'm really excited about it. And of course, I'll take you guys along the entire ride as we create this thing from start to finish. I'm going to be doing a lot of things like this in regards to this film, especially when it comes time to start promoting it and getting the word out about it. I'm going to create a lot of little vignettes like this from the actual film to help promote it. In that traditional analog style where it's more mysterious than anything else. Kind of like what they just did with Long Legs. That was a great marketing campaign. It got so many people interested in that film. I personally didn't love Long Legs. I thought I was going to absolutely adore that film. There were a lot of things I did like about it. I thought all the acting was great. Just really didn't love the story very much. I thought it looked great as well. Anyway, I'm rambling on now. Thank you guys so much for watching the video this far. Hope this video was informative, and hopefully I covered all the questions that you guys wanted answered. If there's anything I missed in regards to the making of this proof of concept, please let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you guys so much for coming along on this filmmaking journey with me. I am Ryan, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye. Hey, one more thing before I go. If you haven't watched my video on making a proof of concept yet, you can check out that video right here. It'll tell you everything you need to know about what a proof of concept is and some of the best practices for making your own proof of concept for your film idea. Take care.